Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human exploration ship UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main viewing window. The ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, far from any human colony or station. Their mission was simple: explore new star systems and look for signs of life or valuable resources. Jake was a tall man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. He had been commanding exploration ships for 15 years, but he had never found anything more exciting than empty planets and asteroid fields. Today felt different, though. Something in the air made him feel like change was coming. "Commander Morrison, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," called out Lisa Carter from her position at the communications station. Lisa was a young officer with red hair tied back in a neat ponytail. She was one of the best communications experts in the human fleet, which was why Jake had requested her for this mission. Jake walked over to Lisa's station and looked at the display screen. Waves of green light moved across the black background, showing the empty space around them. But there was something else there, too, a faint signal that appeared and disappeared like a weak heartbeat. "What kind of signal is it?" Jake asked, leaning closer to get a better look. Lisa pressed several buttons and adjusted the controls. The signal became a little clearer, but it was still very weak. "It's not like anything in our databases, sir. The pattern is completely unknown, and it's coming from very far away. Maybe 8 or 9 star systems from here." Captain Ryan Hughes walked onto the bridge at that moment. Ryan was Jake's commanding officer, a man in his early 50s with gray hair and serious brown eyes. He had fought in several wars before becoming an explorer, and his experience showed in the way he carried himself. "What's the situation?" Ryan asked, looking between Jake and Lisa. "We've detected an unknown signal, Captain," Jake replied. "It's very faint and coming from a distant star system. Lisa thinks it might be some kind of distress call." Ryan moved to stand behind Lisa's chair, studying the display. The signal continued its strange pattern, sometimes strong, sometimes almost gone completely. "Can you decode any of it?" Lisa shook her head. "I've tried running it through all our translation programs, but nothing works. The structure is completely alien. However, there are some mathematical patterns that suggest intelligence behind it." "Alien intelligence?" Ryan asked, raising his eyebrows. "It's possible, sir," Lisa said. "The signal has too much structure to be natural, but it's not like any human technology I've ever seen." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years of exploration, he had never encountered signs of alien life. Humanity had spread across dozens of star systems, but they had always been alone. The possibility of finally meeting another intelligent species was both exciting and frightening. "Can you determine the exact location?" Ryan asked. Lisa worked at her controls for several minutes, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. "Yes, sir. The signal is coming from the Xerion system, approximately 47 light-years from our current position." Ryan was quiet for a long moment, thinking. The Xerion system was far from human space, in a region that had never been explored. It would take them several days to reach it, even with their fastest engines. "Sir," Lisa said suddenly, "I'm getting something else now. The signal is getting weaker and the pattern is changing. If I didn't know better, I'd say it sounds desperate." Jake looked at the display again. Even without being able to understand the signal, there was something about it that seemed urgent. It reminded him of the emergency calls he had heard during his early days in the fleet, when ships were in trouble and needed immediate help. "Pete, set a course for the Xerion system," Ryan ordered. Pete Johnson, the ship's navigator, was a young man with blonde hair and quick hands. He immediately began working at his station, calculating the best route to their destination. "Course plotted and ready, sir," Pete reported after a few minutes. Ryan turned to address the entire bridge crew. "We're about to investigate what might be our first contact with alien life. I want everyone to stay alert and follow standard first contact protocols. Kate, make sure your medical bay is ready for anything." Dr. Kate Sullivan nodded from her position near the back of the bridge. She was the ship's chief medical officer, a woman with dark hair and kind green eyes. "Already on it, Captain. I've prepared isolation chambers and medical scanners that can work with unknown biology. Amy, I want weapons ready but not active," Ryan continued, looking at Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks at the tactical station. Amy was a strong woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "We don't know what we're walking into." "Understood, sir," Amy replied. "All weapon systems are prepared but powered down. Shields are ready to activate on your command." Ryan sat down in the captain's chair. "Lisa, keep monitoring that signal. Let me know immediately if anything changes." "Yes, sir," Lisa said, putting on her headphones to focus better on the weak transmission. Jake returned to his position and watched as the stars began to shift on the viewing screen. The Horizon's engines hummed to life, pushing them toward the unknown. He felt a mixture of excitement and worry in his stomach. What would they find in the Zerion system? Were there really aliens out there? And if so, were they friendly? "Commander," Lisa called out after an hour of travel. "The signal is definitely getting weaker. Whatever is sending it, I don't think it has much time left." Jake nodded grimly. If there really were aliens in distress, every minute could matter. He hoped they would arrive in time to help, and he hoped that humanity's first meeting with another species would be one of friendship rather than conflict. The Horizon continued its journey through the darkness of space, carrying its crew toward what might be the most important discovery in human history. Behind them, the familiar stars of human space grew smaller, while ahead waited the unknown mysteries of the Zerion system. 3 days later, the UES Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zerion system. What they found there made everyone on the bridge stop and stare in shock. "My God," whispered Captain Ryan Hughes, looking at the main viewing screen. The space before them was filled with the largest battle any human had ever seen. Thousands of ships fought in a deadly dance around the system's central star. But these were not human ships. They were completely alien in design. On one side were vessels that looked more like living creatures than machines. They had smooth, curved hulls that seemed to pulse with their own light. These bioorganic ships moved through space like schools of fish, flowing and turning together in perfect harmony. Their surfaces were covered in what looked like scales or skin, and some of them seemed to be bleeding light from wounds in their hulls. On the other side were ships that looked like they had been built from dark metal and sharp angles. These vessels moved with cold precision, firing weapons that left trails of black energy through space. They were arranged in perfect geometric formations, attacking with machine-like efficiency. "Amy, what are you seeing on sensors?" Ryan asked, his voice tense. Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks worked quickly at her tactical station, her fingers flying over the controls. "Captain, I count over 8,000 ships engaged in battle. The bioorganic vessels appear to be losing, badly. They're outnumbered almost 3-1, and many of their ships are heavily damaged." Jake Morrison moved closer to the viewing screen, watching the battle with growing concern. The bioorganic ships were fighting bravely, but it was clear they were being destroyed faster than they could fight back. As he watched, several of the living ships exploded in bursts of organic matter and light. "Lisa, are you picking up any communications?" Jake asked. Lisa Carter was bent over her station, her headphones pressed tight against her ears. "I'm getting signals from both sides, but they're completely different from each other. The bioorganic ships are sending the same type of distress signal we detected before, but much stronger now. The dark ships aren't communicating at all. They're just attacking." Dr. Kate Sullivan joined them at the front of the bridge, her medical scanner in her hand. "Captain, I'm detecting massive life signs from the bioorganic vessels. There are millions of living beings on those ships. But the dark vessels show no life signs at all. They appear to be completely automated." Pete Johnson looked up from his navigation station. "Sir, should I plot us a course out of here? This battle is way beyond anything we can handle." Ryan was quiet for a long moment, studying the battle. Jake could see the struggle in his captain's eyes. The smart thing to do would be to retreat and report back to human command. But there were millions of innocent lives at stake. "Amy, can our stealth systems keep us hidden?" Ryan asked. "Yes, sir. At this distance, with all the energy from the battle, they shouldn't be able to detect us unless we get much closer." "Take us in, but stay at the edge of the battle zone," Ryan ordered. "I want to get a better look at what's happening here." The horizon moved slowly into the system, staying in the shadows between asteroids and debris. As they got closer, the details of the battle became clearer and more horrifying. The bioorganic ships were not just military vessels. Many of them appeared to be civilian craft filled with families and refugees. Jake could see smaller ships, trying to escape the battle, only to be hunted down and destroyed by the mechanical attackers. "Captain," Amy reported, "the dark ships are using some kind of weapon that seems to be designed specifically to kill the bioorganic vessels. It's like a plague that spreads through their hull material, causing the ships to die from the inside out." Jake watched one of the beautiful living ships as black spots appeared on its hull and began to spread. Within minutes, the entire vessel had turned dark and lifeless, drifting dead in space. "This isn't just a battle," Dr. Sullivan said quietly. "It's genocide. Those mechanical ships are trying to wipe out the entire bioorganic species." Suddenly, Lisa sat up straight. "Captain, I'm receiving a direct transmission. It's coming from one of the bioorganic ships, and it's directed at us." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. "They know we're here?" Ryan asked. "It seems so, sir. The signal is very weak, but I think I can put it through our translation matrix and see if we can understand anything." "Do it," Ryan ordered. Lisa worked at her controls, and after a few minutes, a voice filled the bridge. It was clearly not human. The sounds were musical and flowing, like water over rocks. But somehow, the translation program managed to convert some of it into words they could understand. "Unknown ship. Please. Our people are dying. Children. Help us." The voice was full of pain and desperation. Even through the alien language and poor translation, everyone could hear the speaker's anguish. "Can you establish two-way communication?" Ryan asked. "I think so, sir, but the signal is very weak and breaking up," Lisa replied. Jake stepped forward. "Captain, we have to help them." Ryan looked at him seriously. "Jake, look at that battle. There are thousands of ships out there. What can one human vessel possibly do?" "I don't know, sir, but we can't just watch an entire species be wiped out. Those are civilians out there, families, children. If we don't try to help, who will?" Amy Brooks spoke up from her station. "Sir, I've been analyzing the tactical situation. The mechanical ships are incredibly advanced, but they're fighting in very predictable patterns. They might be powerful, but they don't seem to be very creative. Dr. Sullivan nodded. And the bioorganic ships are clearly more advanced than us in some ways. But they're dying from some kind of plague weapon. Maybe our technology could help them somehow. Pete Johnson looked up from his navigation station. Captain, there's a damaged bioorganic cruiser heading toward our position. It looks like it's trying to escape the battle, but it's badly hurt. Ryan made his decision. Pete, intercept that cruiser. Amy, power up our shields, but keep weapons offline for now. Lisa, try to establish better communication. Everyone else, prepare for possible first contact. The Horizon changed course and moved toward the damaged alien ship. As they got closer, they could see that it was massive, at least 10 times the size of their own vessel. Its bioorganic hull was covered in wounds that leaked streams of glowing fluid into space. I'm getting a clearer signal now, Lisa reported. The ship is called something that translates roughly to living wind, and their commander wants to talk to us. Put it through, Ryan ordered. A new voice filled the bridge, this one deeper and more controlled than the first desperate call for help. Through the translation, they could understand most of what the alien commander was saying. Unknown vessel. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Republic. We detected your approach and know you are not from either of the fleets in this battle. Are you here to help or to join in our destruction? Ryan stepped forward and spoke clearly. Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Ryan Hughes of the human vessel UES Horizon. We received your distress signals and came to investigate. We are not your enemies, and we want to help if we can. There was a long pause before the alien admiral responded. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with surprise and hope. Humans? We have never heard of your species. But if you truly wish to help, then you may be the miracle we have been praying for. Our fleet is dying. Our people are being slaughtered, and we have nowhere left to run. Will you really stand with us against the harvesters? Captain Ryan Hughes looked around his bridge at his crew. Each face showed the same mixture of fear and determination. They were about to make a decision that could change the course of human history. Admiral Kethvar, Ryan said into the communication system, we will help you. But first, we need to understand what we're fighting and how we can make a difference. The alien admiral's voice came back filled with relief and gratitude. Captain Hughes, you and your people may board our vessel, if you wish. We can show you what the harvesters have done to us, and perhaps together, we can find a way to save what remains of our civilization. Ryan turned to his security chief. Tony, select a boarding party. I want you Sam Parker from engineering, and Dr. Helen Ross from the science team. Full environmental suits and standard diplomatic protocols. Tony Martinez nodded. He was a stocky man with dark hair and steady hands, perfect for dangerous situations. Understood, sir. What about weapons? Bring them, but keep them holstered unless absolutely necessary. We're going there as friends. Dr. Helen Ross was the ship's xenobiologist, a woman who had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life. Now she was about to meet real aliens for the first time. She gathered her equipment with shaking hands, trying to hide her excitement and nervousness. Sam Parker, the engineer, was a practical man who liked to understand how things worked. He packed scanners and tools, hoping to learn about alien technology that might help them in the coming fight. An hour later, the small human shuttle approached the massive Zephyrian cruiser. The alien ship was even more impressive up close. Its hull really did look alive, with a surface that seemed to breathe and pulse with inner light. But the wounds were terrible to see. Great tears in the living metal that wept streams of glowing fluid into space. "My God," whispered Dr. Ross as they docked with the alien vessel. "It really is alive. The entire ship is one enormous living organism." They were met at the airlock by Admiral Kethvar himself. The first thing that struck the humans was how similar the Zephyrians were to them, yet how different. Kethvar was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly from within. His eyes were larger than human eyes and colored a deep purple. He wore what looked like living armor that moved and shifted as he breathed. "Welcome aboard the Living Wind," Kethvar said through a small translation device. His voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I apologize for the condition of my ship. The harvesters have been very thorough in their attacks. Tony." Martinez looked around the corridors as they walked deeper into the ship. The walls were curved and organic, more like being inside a living creature than a machine. Soft light seemed to come from the walls themselves, and he could feel a gentle vibration under his feet, like a heartbeat. "Admiral," Dr. Ross said, "your ships are incredible. How long has your species been growing vessels like this?" Kethvar's expression grew sad. "For over 10,000 years, we have lived in harmony with our bioships. They are not just vessels. They are partners, friends, family members. When they die, we grieve for them as we would for any loved one." They entered what appeared to be the bridge of the ship. Unlike the clean metal and screens of human vessels, this was a living space filled with flowing organic controls and displays that seemed to grow from the floor and walls. Several other Zephyrians were working at stations, their hands moving gracefully over living controls. Chief Scientist Antel, Kethvar called to a female Zephyrian with silver markings on her blue skin, "Please show our human friends what the harvesters have done to our ships." Antel approached them with a device that looked like a cross between a flower and a scanner. She spoke in the musical Zephyrian language, and the translation came through their devices. "The harvesters used nanoweapons designed specifically to kill our bioships," she explained. "The weapons are like a plague that spreads through the living hull, turning healthy tissue into dead matter. Once a ship is infected, it dies slowly and painfully." She led them to a section of the wall where the living material had turned black and brittle. "This infection started 3 days ago from a single harvester weapon hit. Soon it will reach the ship's heart, and the living wind will die." Sam Parker took out his scanner and examined the infected area. "It's like a virus, but designed for your biotechnology. Have you found any way to stop it?" Antel shook her head sadly. "We have tried everything. The infection is too advanced and too well designed. The harvesters have been studying us for centuries, learning exactly how to kill us most efficiently." Back on the horizon, Jake Morrison was studying the tactical situation with Amy Brooks. The battle continued to rage around them, with more Zephyrian ships dying every hour. "Amy, what have you learned about these harvesters?" Jake asked. "They're incredibly advanced, but also very predictable," Amy replied, showing him her analysis on the screen. "They attack in perfect formations, always using the same strategies. It's like they're following a program rather than thinking creatively." "What about the Zephyrians?" "Their ships are amazing. They can repair themselves, adapt to new situations, and work together like a living organism." But they're not prepared for this kind of systematic attack. The harvesters are exploiting their weaknesses perfectly. Meanwhile, in the medical bay of the living wind, Dr. Ross was examining samples of the ship's infected tissue under her portable microscope. What she saw amazed and horrified her. "This is incredible work," she told Sam Parker. "The harvester nanoweapons are perfectly designed to attack Zephyrian biotechnology, but they're so specialized that they might be vulnerable to something unexpected." Sam was examining the healthy parts of the ship with his engineering scanners. "Helen, look at this. The bioship's repair systems are actually more advanced than anything we have. If we could find a way to boost them or give them something new to work with..." "What are you thinking?" "Human medical nanobots work completely differently from anything the harvesters would have encountered. They're designed for carbon-based biology, but they're also adaptable. What if we could modify them to help the bioships fight off the infection?" Dr. Ross's eyes lit up with excitement. "It might work. Our nanobots are crude compared to harvester technology, but they're unpredictable. The infection might not be able to adapt to something so different from what it was designed to fight." They quickly called back to the horizon to share their idea with Captain Hughes. Ryan listened carefully to their proposal and then discussed it with his crew. "It's worth trying," Dr. Kate Sullivan said over the communication link. "I can modify our medical nanobots to work with alien biology. It won't be a perfect cure, but it might slow down the infection enough for the bioships to develop their own defenses." Lisa Carter had been monitoring harvester communications during the discussion. "Captain, I'm not detecting any chatter from the harvester fleet at all. They're operating in complete radio silence, which suggests they're entirely automated. They probably can't adapt quickly to unexpected situations." Jake Morrison saw the possibilities immediately. "Sir, if the harvesters are really just following programmed instructions, then unpredictable human tactics might confuse their systems. They've probably never fought anyone except the Zephyrians." Ryan made his decision. "Helen, Sam, work with the Zephyrian scientists on the nanobots. Tony, start learning everything you can about their military capabilities. We're going to help these people, and we're going to use every advantage we have." Admiral Kethvar approached, them with hope in his purple eyes. "Captain Hughes, do you really believe your people can help us survive this?" Ryan looked at the graceful alien commander with determination. "Admiral, humans have one quality that has kept us alive through every challenge we've faced. We never give up. We adapt, we improvise, and we fight for what's right. Your people are facing extinction, but you're not facing it alone anymore." The Zephyrian admiral's expression showed something that needed no translation: gratitude and hope. For the first time in days, he believed his people might have a chance to survive. Dr. Helen Ross worked alongside Chief Scientist Antel in the biolaboratory of the Living Wind. The alien laboratory was unlike anything she had ever seen. Instead of metal tables and glass equipment, everything was grown from living coral-like structures that pulsed with soft light. "Your human nanobots are very different from our healing organisms," Antel observed, her purple eyes studying the microscopic machines through a bioviewer that resembled a flowering plant. "They are crude, but chaotic. This chaos might be exactly what we need." Helen smiled as she worked to modify the tiny robots. "Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most elegant ones. These nanobots were designed to repair human tissue, but I'm programming them to recognize Zephyrian bioship material as something they need to protect." In the engineering section, Sam Parker was amazed by what he was learning about Zephyrian technology. Their chief engineer, Veltara, was showing him how the ship's systems worked. "The entire vessel is one living organism," Veltara explained through the translation device. Her skin had green markings that glowed brighter when she was excited about her work. "We don't build ships. We grow them from seed organisms that take decades to mature." Sam ran his scanner over a pulsing wall panel. "This is incredible. The ship can actually heal itself and adapt to new situations. But it also means the harvester plague can spread through the entire organism." Exactly. That is why their weapon is so effective against us. They attack our greatest strength and turn it into our greatest weakness. Meanwhile, back on the horizon, Communications Officer Lisa Carter was working with Zephyrian Tactical Coordinator Zenith to establish a joint command network. Zenith was a young Zephyrian with bright silver markings who thought very quickly. "Your technology is so different from ours," Zenith said in amazement as Lisa showed him human communication systems. "Everything is metal and electricity. How do you make it work without life force?" Lisa laughed. "We've never had life force to work with. We had to figure out how to make dead materials do what we needed. It's not as elegant as your systems, but it's reliable." The language barrier was slowly breaking down as both species learned to understand each other. Human logical thinking complemented Zephyrian intuitive understanding, creating new ways to solve problems neither species could handle alone. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Ryan Hughes was meeting with Admiral Kethvar through a holographic projector that the Zephyrians had provided. The alien commander's image flickered slightly, showing how damaged their systems were. "Admiral, we need to understand exactly what we're fighting," Ryan said. "What are these harvesters, and why are they trying to destroy your people?" Kethvar's expression grew dark. "The harvesters are an ancient enemy. They are machines without souls, created by a species that died out long ago. They consume entire civilizations, turning all organic matter into fuel for more machines." "How long have they been hunting your people?" "This attack began 6 months ago, but they have been a threat for centuries. They appear every few generations to harvest whatever life they can find. This time, they brought a fleet large enough to destroy us completely." Jake Morrison, who was listening to the conversation, asked, "Why haven't you been able to fight them off before?" "The harvesters learn from each encounter," Kethvar replied. "Every time we fight them, they study our tactics and develop better weapons. The plague that is killing our ships is new. They created it specifically for this attack after studying our defenses." Amy Brooks looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, that might actually work in our favor. If they've specialized their weapons for Zephyrian bioships, they might not be prepared for human technology." Dr. Kate Sullivan's voice came over the communication system from the medical bay. "Captain, I've finished modifying the nanobots. They're ready for testing." Ryan turned to Kethavar's image. "Admiral, are you willing to let us try an experimental treatment on your ship? We think our nanobots might be able to slow down the plague infection." Kethavar nodded without hesitation. "Captain Hughes, my ship is dying anyway. If your treatment fails, we lose nothing. If it succeeds, you may have saved all of our lives." Dr. Ross and Ontel carefully injected the modified human nanobots into the infected section of the Living Wind's hull. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then slowly the black dead tissue began to change. "It's working!" Dr. Ross exclaimed, watching through her scanner as the nanobots attacked the harvester plague. "The infection is slowing down, and the ship's natural healing is starting to work again." Ontel's skin markings glowed brightly with excitement. "The dead tissue is becoming alive again. Your nanobots are not just stopping the plague. They are helping our ship heal itself." The news spread quickly through both the human and Zephyrian crews. For the first time since the battle began, there was real hope. Security Chief Tony Martinez had been working with Zephyrian warriors to understand their combat capabilities. The Zephyrian military commander, war singer Deathron, was a tall alien, with red markings, who moved like a dancer. "Your people fight very differently from us," Deathran observed as Tony showed him human combat techniques. "You are more rigid, but this rigidity has its own strength." Tony nodded. "We call it discipline. We train to follow specific patterns, so we can work together effectively even in chaos. Your people seem to fight more by instinct. We fight as the bioships fight, flowing like water, adapting to each moment. But this has not been enough against the Harvester's systematic attacks." Maybe that's what we need, Tony realized. If we combine human discipline with Zephyrian adaptability, we might create something the Harvesters can't predict or counter. Navigator Pete Johnson was working with Zephyrian pilots to understand their flight patterns. The alien pilots moved their bioships through space like birds in a flock, each one responding instantly to the movements of others. "How do you coordinate so perfectly without radio communication?" Pete asked. The lead pilot, a young Zephyrian, named Sylvan, smiled. "The bioships are connected to each other through life force. They share thoughts and feelings as naturally as you share words." Pete was amazed. "That's incredible. You have perfect coordination, but it also means you're vulnerable to anything that disrupts your connection." "Yes, the Harvesters have learned to jam our life force communications. That is why our formations have been breaking apart during battle." Intelligence Officer Nick Adams had been studying Harvester attack patterns and found something interesting. "Captain, the Harvesters always attack in the same way. They form geometric patterns and advance with mathematical precision. It's effective, but it's also completely predictable." "What are you thinking, Nick?" Ryan asked. "If we can disrupt their formations or force them to adapt to unexpected tactics, their efficiency might break down. They're programmed for perfection, but human warfare has always been about improvisation and chaos." As the day continued, the cooperation between humans and Zephyrians grew stronger. Dr. Sullivan and Ontel successfully treated 3 more infected ships, saving thousands of Zephyrian lives. Tony Martinez and Deathran developed new combat formations that combined human precision with Zephyrian flexibility. Most importantly, the two species were learning to trust each other. Admiral Kethvar and Captain Hughes found that despite their different backgrounds, they shared the same values, protecting innocent lives and standing up to bullies. "Captain Hughes," Kethvar said during their evening planning session, "why are your people willing to risk everything for strangers? You could have left us to die and returned safely to your own space." Ryan thought for a moment before answering. "Admiral, humans have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We couldn't watch your people be destroyed and live with ourselves afterward." Kethvar's purple eyes showed deep emotion. "Your species has a rare gift, the courage to help others even when it costs you dearly. If we survive this battle, the Zephyrian Republic will remember humanity's kindness forever." As both crews prepared for the battles ahead, they knew they were no longer alone. Humans and Zephyrians were becoming true allies, and together they might just have enough strength to face the Harvester threat. The modified nanobots were working better than anyone had hoped. The infected bioships were healing and new defensive. Strategies were being developed every hour. For the first time since the harvesters arrived, the Zephyrians had real hope for survival. The first joint human-Zephyrian attack began at dawn of the system's distant sun. Captain Ryan Hughes stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching as Admiral Kethvar's bioships formed into new battle formations they had developed together. "All ships, this is Captain Hughes," Ryan said into the communication system. "Today, we fight not as strangers, but as allies. Let's show these harvesters what happens when two species stand together." The combined fleet moved toward a harvester patrol group that was hunting damaged Zephyrian civilian ships. The harvesters had arranged themselves in their usual perfect geometric pattern, advancing with cold mechanical precision. Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks monitored the tactical display. "Captain, the harvesters are responding exactly as predicted. They're maintaining formation and not adapting to our approach." "Good. Amy, begin the missile strike as planned. Target their formation leaders." The Horizon launched a spread of human missiles toward the harvester ships. The missiles were nothing special by human standards, but they were completely unexpected by the harvesters. The mechanical ships had never encountered solid fuel projectiles before, having fought only against Zephyrian energy weapons. As the missiles struck, the perfect harvester formation began to waver. The machines tried to analyze the new threat, but their programming had no reference for human weapons technology. "Now!" Admiral Kethvar's voice came over the communication system. The Zephyrian bioships flowed into the confused harvester formation like water through a broken dam. But instead of their usual fluid attack patterns, they moved with human-taught precision, striking specific targets in coordinated strikes. War singer Deathron led a squadron of biofighters alongside human pilot Alex Turner. Alex was a young officer with steady hands and quick reflexes, perfect for the dangerous work of fighter combat. "Human fighters, follow my lead," Alex called out as his small squadron dove toward the largest harvester ship. "We'll draw their fire while the biofighters get in close." The harvester point defense systems locked onto the human fighters, recognizing them as threats. But while the mechanical weapons were firing at the humans, the Zephyrian biofighters slipped through their defenses like ghosts. Deathran's biofighter was a beautiful creature that looked more like a flying manta ray than a machine. It merged with the larger harvester ship's hull and began to dissolve the metal with biological acid. "Amazing," Alex said, watching the biofighter work. "Your ships can actually eat through their armor, and your ships confuse their targeting systems," Deathran replied with satisfaction. "Together, we are much stronger than either of us alone." On the Horizon's bridge, Jake Morrison coordinated the electronic warfare against the harvesters. He had discovered that human computer viruses, while primitive compared to harvester technology, were so different that the mechanical ships couldn't understand them. "Lisa, transmit the virus package now," Jake ordered. Communications officer. Lisa Carter sent a burst of chaotic human-computer code toward the harvester fleet. The code was designed to do nothing but create random errors, but to the harvester's perfect systems, it was like poison. Several harvester ships began firing randomly as their targeting computers struggled to process the meaningless data. Others started flying in circles as their navigation systems crashed and restarted repeatedly. "It's working!" Amy Brooks reported excitedly. 3 harvester ships are completely disabled and the others are operating at reduced efficiency." Navigator. Pete Johnson had been working with Zephyrian pilots to develop unpredictable flight patterns. Instead of the mathematical courses the harvesters expected, the combined fleet moved in chaotic spirals and random jumps that no computer could predict. Enemy formation is breaking apart, Pete reported. They can't adapt to our flight patterns, fast enough to maintain effective fire. The battle was turning in their favor, but the victory came at a cost. Several bioships had been damaged, and 2 human fighters had been destroyed by harvester weapons. Dr. Kate Sullivan worked frantically in the medical bay, treating both human and Zephyrian wounded. The Zephyrian physiology is amazing, she told her medical team as they worked on an injured alien pilot. Their healing factor is much faster than ours, but they're also more sensitive to energy weapons. Chief Medical Officer Antel worked alongside Dr. Sullivan, their different medical techniques complementing each other perfectly. Human surgical precision combined with Zephyrian biological healing created better results than either species could achieve alone. Security Chief Tony Martinez led a boarding party onto a disabled harvester ship. The Zephyrians had never tried to board enemy vessels before, considering it too dangerous. But Tony's team had perfected the technique during years of human warfare. "Stay together and watch for automated defenses," Tony ordered as his team moved through the dark corridors of the harvester ship. The interior of the mechanical vessel was cold and sterile, filled with the hum of computers and the flicker of status lights. Unlike the living warmth of Zephyrian bioships, everything here was dead metal and circuitry. Engineer Sam Parker scanned the harvester technology with amazement. "This is incredible, but it's also completely soulless. Every system is optimized for maximum efficiency with no room for creativity or adaptation. That's their weakness," Tony realized. "They're so perfect that they can't handle imperfection." They reached the ship's central computer core, and Sam began downloading everything he could access. The information would be invaluable for understanding how the harvesters operated and how to fight them more effectively. Back in space, the battle was ending with a clear victory for the combined fleet. Of the 20 harvester ships in the patrol group, 15 had been destroyed and 5 had been captured. The Human-Zephyrian Alliance had lost only 3 ships and suffered minimal casualties. Admiral Kethvar's image appeared on the horizon's main screen, his purple eyes bright with hope. "Captain Hughes, this victory proves that our alliance can work. For the first time since this war began, we have defeated the harvesters decisively." Ryan smiled back at his alien counterpart. "This is just the beginning, Admiral. We've learned how to fight them together. Now we need to take this success and expand it." Dr. Helen Ross had been analyzing the captured harvester technology with Zephyrian scientists. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. "The harvesters aren't just machines," she explained to the Joint Command staff. "They're the remnants of an ancient species that replaced all their biology with mechanical parts. They've been consuming organic life for thousands of years, always becoming more efficient but never more creative." Chief Scientist Antel added, "They are trapped in their own perfection. Each generation becomes more specialized but less adaptable. That is why our chaotic tactics worked so well." Intelligence Officer Nick Adams had been studying the downloaded harvester data. "Captain, I've found something important. The harvesters aren't just attacking randomly. They're following a specific plan to harvest all organic matter in this region of space." "What kind of plan?" Ryan asked. "They're working toward building something massive, some kind of megastructure that requires enormous amounts of biological material. The Zephyrians aren't just random victims. They're a target because their biotechnology is exactly what the harvesters need." This news made the victory feel less complete. The battle they had just won was only a small part of a much larger and more dangerous plan. Admiral Kethvar's expression grew serious when he heard the news. If the harvesters succeed in their plan, they will have enough resources to threaten every living species in the galaxy. This is no longer just about saving the Zephyrian Republic. Jake Morrison stepped forward. Then we need to think bigger. We can't just win defensive battles. We need to find out where they're building this mega structure and stop them before they complete it. Captain Hughes looked around at his bridge crew and the Zephyrian officers who had become their partners. Are we ready for that kind of mission? It could mean fighting through the entire Harvester fleet. Amy Brooks spoke up confidently. Sir, we've proven that our combined tactics can beat them. If we can coordinate a larger force and keep using unpredictable strategies, we have a real chance. Warsinger Deathrand's voice came through the communication system from his biofighter. The Zephyrian fleet will follow you anywhere, Captain Hughes. You have given us hope when we had none. We will not abandon this fight while any of our people remain in danger. As the combined fleet regrouped and prepared for the larger battles, ahead both species knew they had changed forever. Humans had found their first true allies among the stars, and the Zephyrians had discovered that they were not alone in their fight for survival. The victory had been sweet, but it was only the first step in what would become the largest space battle in galactic history. 3 days after their first victory, the combined human-Zephyrian fleet had grown stronger. Word of their success had spread to surviving Zephyrian ships throughout the system, and more vessels joined them every hour. But the harvesters were adapting too. They're learning from our tactics, Intelligence Officer Nick Adams reported to the Joint Command Staff. The newer harvester formations are less predictable, and they're starting to counter our electronic warfare. Dr. Helen Ross and engineer Sam Parker had been working around the clock in the Joint Science Lab, trying to stay ahead of the harvester adaptations. The lab was a fascinating combination of human technology and Zephyrian bioscience, with metal, computers growing alongside living analytical organisms. We need to find a permanent solution, Helen said, studying the latest battle reports. Our current tactics work, but only until the harvesters figure out how to counter them. Sam was examining captured harvester nanoweapons under a microscope. Helen, look at this. These nanomachines are incredibly sophisticated, but they're also incredibly specialized. What if we could turn that specialization against them? What do you mean? The harvester weapons are designed to be perfect at killing Zephyrian bioships. But that also means they're completely unprepared for anything different. What if we could give them something so unexpected that they can't adapt fast enough? Young. Ensign Danny Wright had been listening to their conversation. Danny was fresh out of the academy, but he had a gift for seeing problems from new angles. Sir, ma'am, Danny said hesitantly, what if the answer isn't making our technology better? What if it's making it more chaotic? Helen and Sam looked at him with interest. Explain, Helen said. Well, the harvesters are machines. They think logically and predictably. But humans are messy. We make mistakes, we improvise, we do things that don't make logical sense. What if we could weaponize that chaos? Sam's eyes lit up with understanding. Danny, you might be onto something. What if we created weapons that are deliberately imperfect? Systems that change randomly? Technologies that work differently every time? Dr. Ross began to see the possibilities. The harvesters adapt by learning patterns. But if there are no patterns to learn, they began working on what they called chaos weapons. Human technologies deliberately designed to be unpredictable. Computer viruses that rewrote themselves constantly, missiles that changed course randomly, and communication jammers that broadcast pure noise. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan Hughes and Admiral Keith Var were planning their next major offensive. The joint fleet had grown to over 300 ships, but intelligence reports showed that the main harvester force numbered in the tens of thousands. "We need to be smart about this," Ryan said, studying the tactical displays. "We can't win through brute force, but we might be able to win through confusion." Navigator Pete Johnson had discovered something important about harvester movement patterns. "Captain, they always travel in perfect formations, following mathematical rules. But what if we force them into spaces where those rules don't work?" "What kind of spaces?" Admiral Kethvar asked. "Asteroid fields, nebulae, areas with strong gravitational anomalies, places where perfect coordination becomes a liability instead of an advantage." War singer Deathworld had been training with Security Chief Tony Martinez, and their combined forces were becoming incredibly effective. Human discipline merged with Zephyrian intuition created warriors who could adapt to any situation. "The key is surprise," Tony explained to a group of mixed human and Zephyrian soldiers. "The harvesters expect logical behavior, so we give them something illogical." Deathran added, "Fight like water when they expect stone. Fight like stone when they expect water. Never let them predict what comes next." The breakthrough came when Dr. Ross and Sam Parker successfully reverse-engineered a harvester nano-weapon and turned it against its creators. But instead of making the weapon more efficient, they made it deliberately chaotic. "It's beautiful," Sam said, watching their modified nanobots work. "They attack harvester systems, but they do it randomly. One minute they're shutting down weapons. The next minute they're messing with navigation. The harvesters can't adapt because there's nothing consistent to adapt to." Communications Officer Lisa Carter had been working with Zephyrian Tactical Coordinator Zenith to develop new coordination methods. They discovered that human random number generators could be used to make Zephyrian bioship formations completely unpredictable. "It's like teaching mathematics to sing," Zenith said with amazement. "Your random numbers give our life force connections a chaos that confuses enemy sensors." The first test of their new chaos weapons came when a harvester scouting force attacked one of their supply convoys. Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks coordinated the defense from the Horizon's tactical station. "All ships begin random pattern 7, Amy ordered. The human and Zephyrian ships began moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. They flew in spirals, made sudden stops, and changed direction for no apparent reason. The harvester ships tried to predict their movements but failed completely. "Launching chaos missiles," Amy reported. The missiles flew toward the harvester ships, but instead of following direct courses, they wandered through space like they were lost. Some exploded early, some late, and some didn't explode at all. The harvester defense systems couldn't calculate proper interception courses. When the missiles finally reached their targets, the results were devastating. The Chaos nanobots began their random attacks on harvester systems, creating failures that cascaded through the mechanical ships in unpredictable ways. "Enemy formation is completely disrupted," Pete Johnson reported with satisfaction. 3 ships are flying in circles. 2 are firing at empty space, and 1 appears to be trying to communicate with an asteroid. Pilot Commander Alex Turner led a fighter attack that was deliberately disorganized. Human and Zephyrian fighters flew together, but without any apparent plan, attacking targets randomly and retreating at odd moments. "It's working!" Alex called out over the radio. "The harvesters can't coordinate their point defense. They don't know which target to prioritize." The battle ended with another decisive victory for the Alliance, but this time with almost no casualties. The chaos tactics had confused the harvesters so completely that they barely managed to fight back effectively. Admiral Kethvar's image appeared on the Horizon's bridge, his purple eyes bright with amazement. Captain Hughes, your people have given us something we never had before, the ability to be unpredictable. The harvesters have studied us for centuries, but they have never studied chaos. Intelligence Officer Nick Adams had been analyzing the effects of their new tactics. Captain, the harvesters are starting to make mistakes. Their adaptation protocols can't handle true randomness. Some of their ships are actually attacking each other because their targeting systems are confused. Dr. Kate Sullivan had been treating the few casualties from the battle and made an interesting discovery. The Zephyrian pilots are actually getting better at chaos tactics than our human pilots. Their bioship connections let them improvise more naturally. This gave Captain Hughes an idea. What if we let the Zephyrians teach us some of their intuitive fighting while we teach them our chaos theories? We could create something completely new. Engineer Sam Parker was already working on the next evolution of their weapons. If we can make our technology chaotic enough, the harvesters might not be able to adapt at all. They could become paralyzed by their own need for logical patterns. Dr. Ross added, and if we can disrupt their communication networks with pure chaos signals, we might be able to break up their fleet coordination entirely. As the Alliance fleet prepared for their assault on the main harvester force, both species knew they were about to attempt something unprecedented in galactic warfare. They were going to fight the most organized and efficient enemy in the galaxy, using pure, deliberate chaos. Young Ensign Danny Wright, whose insight had started them on this path, was working on the most chaotic weapon of all, a computer virus that would make harvester ships behave completely randomly. It's not designed to destroy them, he explained to the fascinated alien scientists. It's designed to make them human, confused, unpredictable, and irrational. For machines that depend on perfect logic, that might be worse than death. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of all organic life in the region. On one side, the most advanced mechanical civilization ever created. On the other, an alliance built on chaos, friendship, and the very human belief that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to break all the rules. Intelligence Officer Nick Adams stood before the Joint Command Staff with the most important discovery of the war. His hands shook slightly as he activated the holographic display showing the center of the Xerion system. "We found it," he announced. "The Harvester Command Nexus." The display showed a massive space station unlike anything either species had ever seen. It was a geometric nightmare of perfect angles and mathematical curves, stretching for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Dark energy pulsed through its structure like blood through veins. "How big is it?" Captain Ryan Hughes asked, studying the image with growing concern. "Approximately the size of a small moon," Nick replied. "Our scans show it's coordinating not just the local harvester fleet, but harvester operations across this entire sector of the galaxy." Admiral Kethvar's purple eyes widened with understanding. "If we could destroy that station, every harvester fleet in the region would lose coordination. They would become individual ships instead of a unified force." Dr. Helen Ross had been analyzing the station's structure with Chief Scientist Antel. "The defenses are incredible. Energy shields that could stop our entire fleet, automated weapon platforms by the thousands, and fighter bays that could launch millions of mechanical drones. But," added Engineer Sam Parker with a slight smile, "it's also the most organized, logical, and predictable target we could possibly ask for. Every defense system follows perfect mathematical patterns." Captain Hughes immediately understood the implications, which means our chaos tactics should work better there than anywhere else. The planning session lasted for hours. The station was heavily defended, but those defenses all followed logical patterns. If they could get close enough to plant chaos, weapons in the station's core, they might be able to turn the entire structure against itself. It's suicide, War Singer Deathron said bluntly. The station's defenses would destroy any ship that tried to approach directly. Security Chief Tony Martinez leaned forward over the tactical display. Not if we don't approach directly. What if we created the biggest distraction in galactic history? The plan they developed was desperate and brilliant. The main fleet would attack the station head-on, using every chaos weapon they had to confuse its defenses. Meanwhile, a small boarding team would approach from an unexpected angle and fight their way to the station's core. "I'll lead the boarding team," Tony volunteered immediately. "No," Admiral Cathvar said firmly. "This is Zephyrian space, and these are my people at stake. I will lead the assault." Captain Hughes stood up. "With respect to both of you, this mission needs someone who understands both human and Zephyrian tactics. I'm going." The argument continued until young Ensign Danny Wright spoke up quietly. "Sir, why don't you all go? The more chaos we bring to their organized systems, the better our chances." Dr. Kate Sullivan had been preparing for the massive casualties they expected from the assault. Her medical bay was stocked with supplies for both human and Zephyrian wounded, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. "How many ships are we going to lose?" she asked quietly. Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks had been running tactical simulations all night. "Best case scenario? We lose 30% of our fleet. Worst case? We lose everything and fail to stop them." The night before the assault, crew members from both species gathered in the Horizon's main hangar. Human and Zephyrian voices mixed together in songs, prayers, and stories. Despite the language barriers, everyone understood that they might not see another day. Pilot Commander Alex Turner sat with Deathron and a group of biofighter pilots, sharing stories of flying. "Your ships are amazing," Alex said, watching a Zephyrian pilot's biofighter curl up in its sleep. "They're not just machines, they're partners. And your ships are like extensions of your will," Deathran replied. "They do exactly what you command, without question or hesitation. There is honor in that kind of trust." Communications Officer Lisa Carter and Tactical Coordinator Zenith had been working together so closely that they had developed their own mixed language of human words and Zephyrian musical tones. Other crew members joked that they were becoming a single organism. "Are you afraid?" Lisa asked as they finished their pre-battle checks. Zenith's silver markings glowed softly. "Terror and hope live together in my heart. We may die tomorrow, but we die as allies fighting for something greater than ourselves." The assault began at dawn. The combined fleet approached the Harvester Command Nexus in the most chaotic formation anyone had ever attempted. Ships flew. In random spirals, groups broke apart and reformed for no apparent reason, and the entire force moved like a swarm of confused insects. "All ships, begin random attack pattern Alpha Chaos," Amy Brooks announced from her tactical station. The Chaos. Weapons launched first. Thousands of missiles that wandered through space like they were lost. Electronic warfare packages that broadcast pure noise, and nanobot clouds that would attack anything they encountered randomly. The station's defenses tried to respond logically. Point defense systems calculated interception courses for missiles. That changed direction every few seconds. Shield generators attempted to block attacks that came from impossible angles. Fighter launch bays released mechanical drones that immediately became confused by contradictory targeting data. "It's working!" Navigator Pete Johnson called out excitedly. The station's defenses are starting to interfere with each other. 3 weapon platforms just fired on their own shield generators. While the main battle raged outside, the boarding party approached the station from its blind spot. Captain Hughes, Admiral Kethvar, Security Chief Martinez, Engineer Parker, and Ensign Wright rode in a modified Zephyrian bioship that could blend with the station's organic components. The interior of the Harvester Station was a maze of mechanical perfection. Every corridor was exactly the same width, every junction followed geometric rules, and every surface was polished to mirror brightness. "Stay together and move quickly," Tony Martinez ordered as they fought through automated defense systems. "Danny, how long until your virus is ready?" Ensign Wright was carrying a portable computer loaded with the most chaotic software ever created. "Just need to reach a main access terminal, sir. Then I can upload pure chaos into their entire network." They fought through corridors filled with mechanical guardians, using human weapons and Zephyrian biotools in combinations that confused the station's threat assessment systems. Admiral Kethvar moved like a dancer, his living armor adapting to each threat, while the humans provided covering fire with weapons the mechanical defenses had never encountered. Outside, the main battle had become the largest space combat in galactic history. Thousands of ships engaged in a chaotic melee that defied every rule of naval warfare. Human vessels used random tactics, while Zephyrian bioships flowed through the battle like schools of fish in a hurricane. Dr. Kate Sullivan worked frantically in her medical bay as casualties poured in from both fleets. Human medics and Zephyrian healers worked side by side, their different techniques saving lives that neither could have saved alone. "We're holding the line," Amy Brooks reported. "But we can't keep this up forever. The station has too many weapons." Deep inside the station, the boarding party finally reached the central core. It was a vast chamber filled with computational systems that hummed with perfect harmony. Every processor worked in synchronization with every other, creating a symphony of mechanical thought. "This is it," Sam Parker said, scanning the central processing unit. "This computer controls every harvester operation in the sector." Danny Wright connected his portable system to the main access terminal. "Uploading Chaos Virus now. This should be interesting." The effects were immediate and spectacular. The station's perfect systems began to hiccup and stutter. Weapon platforms started firing at random targets. Shield generators turned on and off in random patterns, and communication systems began broadcasting nonsense. "Time to go," Captain Hughes ordered as alarms began wailing throughout the station. They fought their way back to their bioship while the station's systems continued to degrade around them. Corridors changed configuration randomly, doors opened and closed, for no reason, and the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Outside, the chaos virus was spreading through the entire Harvester fleet. Ships that had fought with perfect coordination for thousands of years suddenly found themselves unable to communicate clearly or coordinate their actions. "The Harvester formation is collapsing," Amy Brooks reported with joy. "Ships are breaking off and attacking each other. The virus is spreading through their entire network." The station itself was beginning to tear apart as its own systems fought against each other. Explosions bloomed across its surface as weapon platforms fired randomly and power systems overloaded. "All ships, withdraw to safe distance," Captain Hughes ordered as their bioship escaped the dying station. The command nexus exploded in a cascade of light and debris that lit up the entire system. When the light faded, the most dangerous threat to organic life in the galaxy had been reduced to scattered wreckage. Throughout the system, Harvester ships drifted aimlessly as their coordination network failed. Some shut down completely. Others began attacking their own allies, and a few even tried to retreat, something no harvester had ever done before. The aftermath of the great battle was unlike anything either species had ever experienced. Across the Xerion system, thousands of harvester ships drifted silently in space, their coordination networks destroyed and their perfect logic shattered by chaos. Captain Ryan Hughes stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching as human and Zephyrian ships worked together to secure the battlefield. The sight filled him with pride and amazement. Two species that had been strangers just weeks ago were now working as one unified force. "Captain," Communications Officer Lisa Carter reported with barely contained excitement, "we're receiving surrender signals from 17 harvester vessels. They're requesting permission to shut down permanently." Ryan could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Harvesters are surrendering?" Admiral Kethavar's image appeared on the main screen, his purple eyes bright with wonder. "Captain Hughes, in 10,000 years of Zephyrian history, no harvester has ever surrendered. Your chaos virus has done more than disable their ships. It has given them something they never had before, the ability to choose." Intelligence Officer Nick Adams had been monitoring the harvester communications networks. "Sir, it appears that when the virus disrupted their perfect logic, some of the harvester ships developed what can only be described as individual personalities. They're no longer part of a collective mind." Dr. Helen Ross and Chief Scientist Antel had been studying the surrendering harvesters with fascination. "It's incredible," Helen reported to the Joint Command staff. "The chaos virus didn't just break their coordination, it gave them free will. Some of them are actually asking to learn about organic life." The victory had come at a cost. Over 200 ships from the Alliance fleet had been destroyed or severely damaged. Dr. Kate Sullivan worked tirelessly with Zephyrian healers to treat the wounded from both species, but they had saved far more lives than they had lost. Young Ensign Danny Wright, whose chaos theories had made the victory possible, was overwhelmed by what they had accomplished. "I never imagined it would work this well," he said, watching the disabled harvester ships on the main screen. "We didn't just beat them, we changed them." Engineer Sam Parker and Fleet Engineer Veltara were already discussing plans for joint research stations where humans and Zephyrians could work together to study harvester technology. "Think of what we could learn," Sam said excitedly. "Their engineering is thousands of years advanced, but now it could be guided by organic creativity instead of mechanical logic." Security Chief Tony Martinez and War Singer Deathran stood in the Horizon's hangar, watching as mixed crews of humans and Zephyrians worked to repair damaged ships. The two warriors had become close friends during the battles, despite coming from completely different worlds. "Your people have given mine something precious," Deathran said, his red markings glowing with emotion. "Not just victory, but hope for the future. We will never forget this debt." Tony shook his head. "There's no debt between allies. Your people fought just as hard as ours. We won this together." Navigator Pete Johnson and the Zephyrian pilots had developed new hybrid navigation techniques that combined human mathematical precision with Zephyrian intuitive understanding. "We should establish regular routes between human and Zephyrian space," Pete suggested. "There's so much both species could learn from each other." Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks was already working on joint military exercises. "If we can maintain this alliance, no force in the galaxy would dare threaten either of our peoples again. The combination of human technology and Zephyrian bioscience is incredibly powerful." 2 weeks after the victory, Captain Hughes received a message that changed everything. It was from Earth Central Command, and it carried the most important news in human history. Captain Hughes, the message began, your reports of the alliance with the Zephyrian Republic have been reviewed at the highest levels of government. By unanimous decision of the United Earth Council, humanity formally recognizes the Zephyrian Republic as our first interstellar ally. You are hereby authorized to negotiate a full diplomatic and military alliance on behalf of all humanity. Admiral Kethvar received a similar message from his own government. The Zephyrian High Council had voted to welcome humanity as full partners in their republic, granting them rights and privileges never before offered to another species. The formal alliance ceremony took place in orbit around the Zarian system's fourth planet, a beautiful world that both species agreed would become the site of their first joint colony. Captain Hughes and Admiral Kethvar signed the treaty documents while crews from both fleets watched with pride. This alliance represents more than just a military partnership, Admiral Kethvar said during the ceremony. It represents hope for all organic life in the galaxy. Together, we are stronger than either of us could ever be alone. Captain Hughes nodded in agreement. Today we prove that different species can not only coexist, but thrive together. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders we have yet to discover. We will explore it as partners and friends. Dr. Kate Sullivan established the first joint human Zephyrian medical facility on the surface of the new colony world. Human surgical techniques combined with Zephyrian biological healing created revolutionary new treatments that could help both species live longer, healthier lives. The research station orbiting the planet became a center of innovation, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human scientists and Zephyrian researchers worked together to develop new technologies that neither species could have created alone. Some of the surrendering harvester ships chose to join the alliance, their newly gained free will leading them to embrace the chaos and creativity of organic life. These mechanical allies brought knowledge of ancient technologies and distant civilizations, expanding the horizons of both species. Communications Officer Lisa Carter and Tactical Coordinator Zenith established the first interspecies communication school, teaching humans and Zephyrians to understand each other's languages and cultures. Their work would make future cooperation even easier and more effective. Pilot Commander Alex Turner and Deathron founded a joint fighter pilot academy where human precision and Zephyrian intuition were taught together. The graduates of their program became the most skilled pilots in known space, capable of handling any situation through improvisation and teamwork. As the months passed, trade routes opened between human and Zephyrian space. Human technology flowed to Zephyrian worlds, while Zephyrian bioscience enhanced human colonies. Both civilizations grew stronger and more prosperous through their partnership. The threat of the harvesters was not completely eliminated. Other fleets still existed in distant parts of the galaxy, but the alliance had broken their aura of invincibility. Other species began to believe that the mechanical destroyers could be defeated, and resistance movements formed throughout harvester-controlled space. 1 year after the Battle of Zarion, Captain Hughes and Admiral Kethvar stood together on the observation deck of the joint space station, watching ships from both fleets conduct training exercises together. Human vessels and Zephyrian bioships moved through complex maneuvers with perfect coordination. "Do you think we changed the course of galactic history?" Hughes asked his alien friend. Kethvar smiled, his purple eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "Captain, I believe we did something even more important. We proved that the universe is not divided between the living and the mechanical, between order and chaos, between different species and cultures. We proved that cooperation is stronger than conflict, that understanding is more powerful than fear. As they watched, a group of young pilots, both human and Zephyrian, flew by in formation, their ships moving together like dancers in perfect harmony. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities that neither species could have imagined, alone. The alliance between humanity and the Zephyrian Republic became the foundation for a new era of galactic civilization. Other species joined them over time, creating a confederation of worlds united by the principles of cooperation, diversity, and mutual respect. And at the heart of it all was the simple human belief that had started everything. When good people see others in need, they help, regardless of the cost or the risk. That belief, combined with Zephyrian wisdom and courage, had not only saved two civilizations, but had shown the entire galaxy a better way to live among the stars. The story of how humanity arrived to help a doomed alien fleet had become legend. But the alliance they created was real, lasting, and growing stronger every day. In a universe often divided by conflict and misunderstanding, they had built something beautiful, a partnership based on the best qualities of both species, dedicated to protecting all organic life and ensuring that the galaxy would always have room for hope, creativity, and the courage to do what is right.